Welcome to the 5th episode of Life After Delft. Today we have with us Arvind and a familiar face, Fathaah, joining us, who are right now on their journey of doing PhD at TU Delft. So, can you please briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Fathaah, and I'm from Hyderabad in India, and I finished my masters here in 2023. I came here in 2021. So after that, I started my PhD in November of 2023. So it's been like around 8 months of my first year of PhD in mechanical engineering. So I graduated in the field of energy flow and process technology, and I am carrying the same field forward in my PhD.
That's nice. And you, Arvind?
So I'm Arvind. I'm originally from Chennai, but I grew up mostly in and around New Delhi. I also came here to do my master's in chemical engineering back in 2017. I graduated in 2019, and end of 2019 I started my PhD also here in Delft in the mechanical engineering faculty. And now, I'm in my final year and finishing up with my PhD writing and so on. And I'm working on water electrolysis.
Nice. Sounds like a very interesting topic. But I think before we dive into the topic of it, so actually, you know what, the best part about this is it's very great to see that we have someone who's just started his PhD journey and someone who's almost has his finish line of the PhD. So we get the both sides of the story, because there's always been a topic which is lingering around in a lot of people's mind, not just mine, to do PhD or not. That topic has always been like, should I now, should I do later, should I think about it during masters, should I do after masters? It's always a huge topic. So today the main aim is to really tackle into both of it, trying to look at the good side, the bad side, and get a holistic picture so that when somebody wants to do a PhD, they can maybe look this back and see okay, maybe I can do this something differently. So my question to you is, how can one decide to do PhD or not, keeping in mind its long-term impact? Because many people think about short-term impacts, that I'll just get a PhD, but thinking about the long-term impact. So maybe you can start first.
Yeah, for me, my decision of taking a PhD was developing over my masters. So I feel in my first year of masters, when I was doing a lot of my coursework, maybe I was just learning about the different fundamentals and things like that. In my case, it was fluid and thermal engineering. And in my second year, I had a chance of doing, at least in my master track, an internship for 3 months and a thesis for 9 months. So I feel with both those contrasting experiences of one being in the industry and one being pure research, I feel like that helped my decision because I enjoyed the thesis part, the research part of it. So I feel that played a major role. And then on the practical side, I feel it was the job market, if I'm being very blunt and honest. Because at least when we graduated, Netherlands was officially in recession.
And that was in 2021.
When I graduated in 2023.
2023.
So ASML had stopped hiring and things like that. So Netherlands was officially in recession, and I was also applying for jobs. I was also applying for research. But somehow the opportunities for jobs were very less. So that also played a role in me choosing a PhD. So it's both the research, actual work, and as well as a personal side of it, okay, how do I manage to pay back my loan? I have to start earning, and the financial side of it also had an impact with my
So it was
decision.
mainly just striking a balance between the two worlds of money coming in and then also trying to pursue something in your career which tries to balance it out.
Yeah, definitely. You can make it seem like it's a very noble thing. Oh, I really want to help advance a certain field or give back to the society. But in the end, you also have to look out for yourself. I feel the way people show it, it's you want to really make the world a better place, but at the same time, you're looking out for yourself. So for me, it was both.
How about you?
I think my answer is going to be quite similar to Fathaah's, and I think it's probably going to be the case for a lot of the viewers who are going to do their masters with some hopes of doing a PhD, because when you're doing your masters, you get a flavor of both these worlds, the corporate world and the research world, because most master courses involve an internship in some way or form, and also there is definitely going to be a master thesis. And when you do those two things, you get a flavor of both these worlds, and then you get an idea about what you can expect once you graduate from your masters. I think my journey, I went a little bit back and forth with regards to doing a PhD. Coming here, when I came here to do my masters, I think I was pretty set on doing a PhD down the line. It was just a matter of graduating. But then while I was doing my masters, you interact with a lot of PhD students, and then I saw the kind of real effort they were putting in, and kind of got a bit intimidated. Maybe I saw that it was quite daunting. It didn't seem as easy or simple as it was made out to be back in India. Let's put it that way. It seemed like people were doing real cutting edge research, and I don't know, in some way I guess I just got a bit intimidated, and I thought maybe this is not for me. But then came the second year of my masters, where I did an internship at a company, and then I did my master thesis. And yeah, like Fathaah said, I also enjoyed doing my master thesis quite a bit. When I was doing my internship, I realized that a lot of work over there was a bit mundane. It was fast-paced, and efficiency was the priority, and you really didn't have a lot of leeway or freedom to pursue any curiosities that you had, because it was all about delivering things on time and as efficiently as possible. And maybe at that stage, I just felt that pursuing an academic career, research, was something I preferred. And that's why I decided to give a PhD a shot again. And yeah, here we are. And I guess in my situation, things were a bit more simpler. I don't think Netherlands was in a recession or anything per se. But having said that, I never really did apply for a job. I just took up the PhD offers that I got, and yeah. So at least that's my story.
Yeah, because to be honest, this talking from personal experience, like I also did my master's thesis. I took my bachelor's thesis, and I was my own reason for doing the whole master's was because I wanted to take that topic further. I took it to another level, and there are so many times where I have thoughts, like, yeah, I've been working for 3 years, but like I actually want to pursue this further, because this is something I'm so passionate about, and take it to a PhD level. Because every time whenever I started it in my masters, they are like, oh, this topic seems very PhD level, scope it down. But yeah, but it's a very hard decision. I understand, because you are always just like, how do you? Because there are two sides to this. One, if you are passionate about this topic, so this is my second question. So the question I'll just first start with that. Okay, pursuing a PhD is a significant commitment, and can you share what motivated you to embark on this journey? And did the topic was just there, and then you chose the topic, or was it something that, oh, I'm actually interested in this topic, and I want to pursue this as a PhD? Like, there are two sides to this, right? One which is available, and one which what you want to do. How do you find the balance between these two? Because I don't think it's an ideal world where you'll get what you want always. It's always striking a balance between these two.
You want to start, Arvind?
Yeah, all right. So in my case, I started looking for PhD options quite late into my master thesis, because, as I mentioned previously, I was sort of going back and forth. And also, I mean, you can imagine when you're finishing up with your masters, you're quite busy with all the other things, and having to sit through and go through all these plethora of topics that are out there to figure out which one's actually interesting, which one is something you see yourself doing for the next 4 years, because, as you mentioned, it's quite a commitment. It's for 4 years. A few months down the line, you cannot decide that, okay, you know what, I find this boring, so I'm gonna abandon this project, because that's just not how it goes. So yes, it is quite important to go through the topics and understand if that's something you find interesting, and you'll sustain that interest over a period of time. But one thing I wanted to add was, which your question didn't cover, was apart from topic, there are other metrics that I would advise people to look into when choosing a PhD. And in fact, I would say more than even the topic, your supervision is actually very important, because I feel like you can choose a PhD topic which is amazing, which is exactly aligns with your interest and you're passionate about it, But then if you don't have great supervision, maybe because it's not in a well-funded department, or if your supervisor is maybe not so great, not because he's not knowledgeable, but because he's lacking people skill. Or it could be the other way around. He is great with people, but he's not particularly knowledgeable in that subject, because it happens quite often, because people, especially young academics who are starting out with their career, they might want to switch topics and they want to start into a new topic, and they can do that by hiring a lot of new PhD students and postdocs. And in that situation, they themselves aren't really sure about how research in that particular field is carried out. And they are also figuring it out along the way. And if you're the sort of person who, at least at the beginning stages, needs good supervision, a lot of supervision, then yeah, you might be a bit short-handed there. So what I'm trying to say is good supervisor, especially because you yourself are the best gauge of like what sort of supervision you need. A good supervisor can make or break your PhD, because at the end of the day, topic can be great, but if you don't have a good supervisor, your PhD journey can be quite stressful. And at the end of the day, also, your supervisor is who decides whether you have enough material to graduate or not. And let's say if you don't have a great one, then there could be a lot of friction, and that could over a period of time lead to like a difficult process. So I remember when I was looking for PhD options, I had a few metrics in my mind, and of course the research topic was quite up there. Supervisor, I would say I prioritized it even a bit higher than the research topic. And then you have other things like the location, the university, the department, because we, especially in India, we have this tendency to value where you're studying higher than what exactly you're studying, when it comes to starting with a JEE and, a ranking
The rank
system.
is very important in any
Exactly.
situation.
I mean, I myself am guilty of it, because I guess I did chemical engineering in my undergrad, and chemical engineering wasn't really my first choice. But it was my third choice, but I still ended up doing it because I got chemical engineering in like a good university. But that sort of mentality shouldn't really translate into when you're trying to do your PhD, because maybe a university isn't that well known, but the specific research that is done there could be world class, could be state of the art over there. So you cannot judge a PhD project by the university name attached to it, the brand name or something. What matters is the PI, the investigator, the professor who's gotten the funding, who's in charge of the project. What is the brand name associated with him? Is he well known? Is he popular in his field? Has he provided impactful research output in the past few years? So that's the more important metric than the brand image of the university or the department. So these were the three metrics that I considered while applying for PhDs. And yeah, do you have something to add? Maybe?
Very similar lines, but I realized during my master thesis what I don't want from a supervisor, because adding on to that, because usually, like in my case, when I was a master student, when I was doing my thesis, at least I was like doing a computational project in an experimental group. So that's one very important thing I realized during my master thesis, that you have to know what is the expertise of the research group that you're going to. Is that aligning with the topic that you're doing? In that case, for me, I was looking for a PhD, and in my case, the topic was in molecular dynamics, in CO2 electrolysis. And I could see that my professor, my promoter, has that knowledge. He had done his PhD in molecular dynamics. He has several research work, ongoing research work as well, where he's collaborating with a lot of people who know this. So I feel like it gives me a community already where I can seek help. And that is another advantage of like doing a PhD in the same department I did my master thesis in, because I also knew some PhDs who were working on this topic. I had some of my classmates, like one of my classmates is also working in another research group in molecular dynamics. So that already set up a community for me, and that was like, let's say, an advantage, like almost in a way cheating for people who are coming here, like they have to establish themselves. I already had it. I had a home in Delft. and all of that somehow just was set up. So all I had to think about was, okay, if the research group is good and if the topic is something that interests me. So my decision was made a bit easy because of that. But yeah, in a way, master students coming here with the idea of doing a PhD, you really get to know based on how you choose your master thesis. For example, if you do your thesis in a company, maybe you don't get the flavor of how research would be in your department. So if you're planning a PhD, then I think you should seek out a thesis with people you are interested in your field, and then you know what you want and what you don't want.
Yeah.
So I think that sets it up.
So if I understand these two sides, it's mainly about in being just being honest and funny about it. Just either stalk and scout your entire supervisory board. Just like try to conduct as thorough research as possible on them.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's gonna benefit you in the end. And also look at like the other aspects, and of course look at the matrix which you said, and like keep that as a benchmark. Because PhD maybe starting would be relatively easier than thinking about the 4 year long or how much ever long the journey is. That is like you have to have a little bit more long term thought to it rather than just like let's just go for it. There could be multiple ways for it, but I think a more informed decisions always helps in order to know. Because at least for you, I understood like when you're talking about having your own community, I think that could be very beneficial.
Yeah, exactly.
Because even at master's level, I felt that taste, that I had this topic where nobody has talked about it, and suddenly you feel like you are alone. There
Yeah.
could be people, you have tried searching them out, but you're very alone in your own research group. So
Yeah.
then basically even the guidance part becomes very difficult. So I do understand that finding that community can benefit you so much, because even if you have smaller doubt, you can always reach out to people.
Yeah, exactly. Especially, I feel experimental or computational, I think both of them benefit from that experience aspect. You can search the whole knowledge base and still fall short when, like, you're facing a very particular problem that people who have done it would solve it in seconds. So, having at least your topic would be completely different, but somehow, sometimes the tools are similar and people can help you. So
Yeah.
that
I
that
have
is
this always
definitely-
a saying: you always learn by doing and making mistakes.
Yeah, course.
If you can train any chat GPT model on any thousands of books, but till the time you haven't made mistakes, you wouldn't know. Oh, I know now this would go wrong, so I wouldn't do this next time differently. I will save time, I will save efforts.
Exactly.
So I think it's really nice. So okay, let's talk about the good side of PhD. Okay, like because now we're trying to go a little bit more on to do PhD or not, and I want people to have like a little bit more holistic approach to it. So what about the good side? What is the benefits and how does it impact your personal development, and also thinking about how does it benefit the societal impact? So what is the good side of PhD?
Yeah, I can start because it's very fresh in my memory. In the first year, how TU Delft has like a framework for PhDs who are starting. So I think one like a personal development, or let's say even like an attitude of working, if for me was choosing a PhD was also because that was a way to work independently. I feel like you have that freedom of like taking a path. Of course, it's restricted by the topic, restricted by your supervisors, but you still have that wiggle room for a little bit of freedom, and that I feel is my natural habitat. And the framework at TU Delft, it's called a graduate school, where you register with TU Delft, and they walk you through all these different modules where they teach different nuances of a PhD. For example, there is a PhD startup module. So where there are like 4 courses, everything is about, okay, you've gotten a PhD, what are you looking forward to? That's in the first month. Second month is about like the second is like maybe 3 to 6 months where they talk about, okay, now you already started, what are like the things that you need to take care of in terms of like research or in terms of the coursework that you need to do. And then the last module is more about how to manage your supervisors. You're 9 months down in your research, so you know your research group. How do you function in a group? How do you, the team dynamics and things like that, how to manage a supervisor, how to negotiate and things like that. So all of this like soft skills that of course you develop over time since you are a master student, but these are very explicitly there. So And apart from that, you get like different courses on time management or whatever is your problem, or let's say your area that's lacking. You do have the option of choosing some coursework which helps you develop in that side. So I would say personal development definitely there. The societal impact, maybe Arvind, if you can.
Yeah.
Okay, so like Fathaah spoke about starting stages, what sort of benefits that he's observed or development, be it personal or goal-oriented like PhD, like skill-oriented development and so on. Now that I'm at the end of my PhD, I can maybe give you a better overview of how it was for the remainder, like in the
How that helped
subsequent years.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, because when I started out as well, we had the same graduate school PhD development program and so on. But apart from that, something that is common to any PhD program, be it here in Delft or some other university in the Netherlands or somewhere else, is the fact that you're the manager of your own project. So it's basically basic project management stuff. During your PhD, you will more often than not have multiple projects running parallelly. So you will sort of learn how to juggle between these tasks, stay on top of things, also stay on top of different stakeholders, because not only are your supervisors managing your project, but there are also companies or other institutions which have sponsored your project, and they want to know how their money is being spent, what research output you have based on that. And depending on your project, you might have once in every 6 months or yearly progress meetings with them. So that helps you stay a little bit goal oriented. And it gives you this people skills where you talk with people from different backgrounds, because you can imagine when you talk to your supervisors, they have a technical background, so you can dive a bit deeper into the technicalities of things. But perhaps when you're talking to someone from the industry, they don't really care about the nitty-gritty details. They are more result oriented. Then you sort of have to distill your results down into, the more core points that's of relevance to them at least. So in that way, it helps you, sort of gives you the people skills to manage different stakeholders. So that's with regards to project management. And Fathaah already mentioned something about time management. At least TU Delft offers courses on time management, and that's really important because you have a set time frame, especially like for a PhD here at TU Delft. You get a contract for 4 years, and you're expected to finish your PhD within those 4 years. So you can imagine it can be quite challenging, because when you start out your PhD, you're not entirely sure how long it's going to take, what exactly you're going to be doing. You have certain goals, a broad overview of what you want to do, but the reality can be quite different from it, because once you start doing it, you realize, oh, this is actually quite difficult. It's not that easy. Then you start maybe like reducing your goals, maybe simplifying them a bit further. So it's quite dynamic when you think about it. Like as and when you're doing your PhD, you keep iterating through your goals, your deliverables, your milestones, and you keep changing them and modifying them based on how far along you've progressed. So that's also quite important. And then finally, some of the other perks of doing a PhD are, of course, going to conferences, doing summer schools. So conferences, of course, you get to present your research either in the form of a poster or an actual oral talk, and you can present it at a conference within your country, Netherlands, or somewhere abroad within Europe, or an intercontinental conference. I got to go present my work in Boston last year, which was really nice because not only do you get to meet academics from other research universities, you get to blend with them, you get to interact, you get to see how their research culture is, what kind of research they are doing, but also at the same time you get to travel to a different country, experience different culture, the food, just travel, because conferences are also meant for that. You would see that in the schedule of a conference that they want you to explore the city that you are in. They offer you different sorts of information for tourists, touristy information, let's put it that way. So that's really one of the biggest perks. And of course, the university takes care of your expenses, the accommodation, the travel costs, and also your They give you a per diem for food and other expenses on a day-to-day basis over there. And then on the flip side, you also have summer schools, which are, so Fathaah spoke of courses that TU Delft offers, but there are also courses offered by other universities for PhD students, other research institutes, which offer like 1 week programs on some sort of a topic that's relevant either for your research, or maybe sometimes it's not even relevant for your research, but if your supervisor agrees, just because you're interested in that in that topic, you can actually go attend it. For instance, there was some course on turbulence. My research has nothing to do with turbulence, but I was at the start of my PhD. I was just 4 or 5 months into my PhD, and I said, you know what? I've never studied turbulence. I'm curious about it, and I actually want to go attend this 1 week course. And my supervisor said, go for it. Also because I was just at the start and there was enough funding in my project. And yeah, I went and attended it, and it was quite fun because I never used it in my PhD after that, but it was still nice because I got the opportunity, I was presented with the opportunity and the platform to actually go attend this course just purely on the basis that I found it interesting and I was curious, you know. So that's nice. And of course, these research schools can also be in different cities, somewhere abroad, and all the expenses are once again taken care of. And finally, one last thing which I found, which I really enjoyed during my PhD was supervising students. So as a PhD student, you either get to supervise master students or bachelor students, or you can also be a teaching assistant. You can also be a teaching assistant during a master level course, but with a PhD, it's a little bit different because you have maybe greater responsibilities, and you can be a teaching assistant for the same course for multiple years. So you sort of develop like a base and a better understanding of things. But because of COVID, I really didn't get a chance to be a teaching assistant, but I did get a chance to supervise master students. And that was quite an enriching experience because you get to learn a lot when you're supervising students. You get to learn a lot about your own work, and you also get to learn a lot from them because they bring in a new perspective.
Yeah, I feel like supervising also makes you a bit more conscious, because I was like a TA recently for a molecular dynamics course, and I felt like I was double checking everything and my understanding has only improved. Because when you're teaching, I think the best way to learn something is to teach it, or to become an expert in it is to teach it. So that is a very nice experience.
Yeah.
And I guess the last thing would be publishing papers. I mean, that's a controversial topic because it's like it has two sides to it. But let's say if you do publish papers, which you will eventually if you are going to graduate with your PhD, it gives you like a sense of pride and achievement that, you know, you contributed in some way or form to this world, and it's like an everlasting document that will exist with your name always, you know, attached to it. You know, it will stand the test of time in the sense that you may be gone, but many years down the line, your work will still be there. You know, if someone Googles your name, regardless of whatever appears, that research article that you publish, that will be there, and that's something great when you think about it.
I agree. I agree. Since moving to Netherlands, I've really missed Khana Khana. But thanks to our friends Akshay and Yash for bringing authentic homemade Indian meals right here in Netherlands at affordable prices. Big thanks to FooDo for sponsoring this entire series. Do check their video out.
Hello there. I'm your meal from FooDo. A little piece of homemade goodness just for you. I wasn't just thrown together, you know. I was crafted with care, using the freshest ingredients and authentic recipes passed down through generations. Picture this, tender chicken simmering in a rich masala sauce, fragrant basmati rice steaming beside it, and a side of fresh roti being toasted on the pan. I'm not just a meal, I'm a taste of home. And when you taste me, you're tasting the love and tradition that goes into every bite. Then there's the journey to your doorstep. Packed up fresh and delivered right when you need me, so you can enjoy a delicious homemade meal without the hassle. So, order FooDo, and let me bring the flavors of India into your home.
Let's, like, till now we talked about the good side, right? Let's try to hit the dark side or the downside of PhD of what if you don't finish in time? Are there any possible extensions you could get, or is there any safety nets which you can rely upon? What is there in your experience, because you're almost in the end?
Yeah, okay. So the downsides, of course, people should be aware of it. Off the top of my head, the first one is, I think we've discussed this, you will be stuck with one topic, one sort of an umbrella project for your 4 years. So it's a 4-year commitment, and you need to be okay with that and have the motivation to go through with it. Of course, there are people who have gotten disillusioned somewhere down the line and they realize that this is not what they want to do. It's definitely not the end of the world. It is suboptimal, to say the least, because once, let's say, you drop out, more often than not, you want to do a job or something, and then in your interview, it will come up, what did you do in this 1 year or 2 year or whenever you dropped out? And it doesn't portray you in the best of light if you have, let's say, abandoned a project or something. But having said that, again, it's not the end of the line, it's not the end of the world. I have known people who have dropped out after even like 3 or 4 years, and they are now working fine in a job. They just look at it as a research experience, and if you can always explain it, like what your reasons were, people are understanding. Everyone's been through this phase of their life, so it's definitely not the end of the line. The second one would be this thing called a go-no-go meeting. So you have that at the end of the first year of your PhD. And it's when your supervisors, there's like a committee which is decided upon beforehand, and then you present your work that you have done in the first year of your PhD, and then they get to decide whether to give you a go or a no-go. If you get a go, then you can continue with your PhD for the remaining 3 years. If you don't get a go, if you get a no-go, then your contract is terminated. Recently they started handing out only 1.5-year contracts. I think Fathaah
I got a 1.5-year contract. So according to the instructions from TU Delft, the go-no-go has to happen somewhere between within 12 months, so that you have that 6-month buffer. And then after that go-no-go, it's decided that, okay, then you get the next 2.5 years of contract. So in some cases, at least in mechanical engineering and in process and energy, I can say that it's more of you get to know if you're getting a no-go, let's say. The research group and their supervisors are very understanding of that, so that they prepare you mentally and also how you would plan out if you're getting a no-go. So, but I have heard in other faculties, it's a pretty serious process. So it varies very much, and that's something I feel wherever you're doing a PhD, you should have that conversation very early, that okay, what does the go no go look like, and what do you need to do, what are the requirements, deliverables.
I think this over here now, the whole topic of how good your supervisor is, how understanding it is, what is your dynamics with them, plays an important role.
True.
I think
Very true. Yeah.
this would bring, if something is going wrong, he will tell you upfront rather than waiting for the doomsday to come and be like, okay, bye.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's also good for you to be a bit proactive about this and not really beat around the bush or avoid this topic, because I can imagine more often than not, especially because we as Indians, we come from a society where there's usually a large power distance, a power separation. It's very hierarchical in nature. So more often than not, we are not that comfortable talking to our supervisors about such sensitive topics, or maybe we are just insecure even because we are worried about what answer they're going to give, But it's better to know upfront about these things than to be shocked at the later stages. And as you mentioned, yes, your dynamic with your supervisor, your rapport, that definitely helps. You could still be a great researcher and you could be doing everything right, but if the working dynamic is not a good match, then there is a good chance that your supervisor might not feel that happy with the kind of work that you're doing. But having said that, officially TU Delft always maintains that your supervisor is supposed to let you know well in advance that things are not going right, and they're supposed to even provide you with the opportunity to make things better, to work on it. And it's not like a hard and fast, it's not binary that, oh, it doesn't work, that's it, bye-bye. No, they're supposed to give you the opportunity to improve upon and see how to make it work, because giving a no-go is not an easy task for the supervisor as well, because they've lost that 1 year, they've lost that funding for that 1 year on some student, and then they need to somehow figure out money to hire another person. So they also don't want to easily hand out no-goes, So it's for the benefit of both parties that the student gets a co, but it's still something to be aware of. And as Fathaah mentioned, mostly in TU Delft, statistically, the rate of getting a no-go is quite low. You need to have done something incredibly wrong, or maybe basically not show up to work at all to end up getting a no-go. But having said that, doesn't mean you can be quite relaxed about it. You still need to do your best and put your best foot forward right from day one, so that your supervisor has enough faith in your abilities that will sustain for the coming 3 years. Yeah. And then finally, the last downside that I would mention is publications, papers. I mentioned it's quite a controversial topic. Officially, TU Delft doesn't have any policy on the minimum requirements of the papers that should be published, at least explicitly. But then again, now I circle back to your relationship with your supervisor. It depends on what your supervisor's expectations are, what the culture in your group is, in your department is, with regards to how many papers usually people publish before they graduate. Because it can also vary project to project, or on an individual case-by-case basis. Maybe you published one really amazing paper in a very high impact index journal or something, and then you're like sort of set. You don't have to really publish multiple papers. Or maybe you published a lot of smaller papers and, over a period of time. So again, communication is the key. You need to talk about it, discuss with your supervisors upfront about what their expectations are, and also make it clear to them what your expectations are, what your goals are going to be, and then revisit it every 6 months or 1 year, and then discuss that. So this can be a point of tension for some people, can lead to stress, insecurities, and also within PhD students, there can be a lot of comparisons, like you've published so many papers and so on, You can already imagine it's same, like this process never ends. During your master's, it's about grades. During your PhD, it's about papers. So that's another bit of downside, which I would
On the
say.
communication part, I feel like, that's one thing. That is the factor I feel varies quite a lot among different supervisors and different research groups. Like, I feel, at least I saw a pattern that some professors have a lot of PhD students where they have to distribute their time to a lot of these PhD students, and you can imagine that you would be getting less time. For example, I think all of us in our research group get like 1 hour a week at least of like individual meeting time, where we get to like discuss results, and that's 1 per week. So you can imagine that the communication is, we're all on the same page. The supervisors know, okay, this is going wrong, he or she's working on it, and then like the communication is just perfect. But imagine where there's only a meeting once in a month.
Oh, damn.
Things can go wrong. There are 30 days. Like, you can be stuck on something that could have been solved in like 1 meeting.
Yeah.
So I feel this is something very early in your PhD, even before taking it. I remember discussing this because, again, the experiences through my master thesis, it made me realize that, okay, maybe this is a factor for me. So, yeah.
But this actually, I want to ask, sorry, do you have still something?
About the safety nets.
I think that is actually very important. Like, what is the safety net that if things go south? Yes.
So safety net, I don't really have good news when it comes to that, because you get a 4-year contract, or now, as Fathaah mentioned, you get a 1.5 plus 2.5 year contract. And TU Delft is kind of strict about that, because they don't offer really any contract extensions, because they don't want to set the precedent that you can get an extension if you have delays. Also, they want to promote and encourage students to finish their PhD as quickly as possible within the given time frame. In fact, recently I've even heard that the supervisors are being asked, professors are being asked to encourage, motivate, and focus their supervision in such a manner that the students can finish their PhD in whatever way or form within the stipulated 4 years. It's also good for the university's throughput, because PhD students can leave, which will pave the way for new PhD students to come and thereby increase their research output. But having said that, things can go wrong. As I mentioned, a PhD project is quite dynamic. You're never certain whether, if you start with something 4 years down the line, whether 4 years are sufficient for you to finish it or not. In my specific case, I started my PhD 4 months down the line, COVID hit. And then suddenly everything changed. We were confined to our houses, we had to work from home, and I was just starting to understand how this PhD stuff
Yeah.
works and how to get my workflow going. And it was quite a bit of deviation and distraction, and took some time that contributed to quite some delays. So in such sort of unavoidable circumstances, there are some possibilities, but they are quite far and in between. For instance, for COVID, the Dutch government actually provided with a COVID fund for all universities across Netherlands to offer extensions for their PhD students, ranging from 1 month to 6 months, which was depending on the discretion of your supervisor. But having said that, it was not offered by TU Delft or any other university. It was offered by the Dutch government, and once that fund ran out, the universities, be it TU Delft, Eindhoven, Twente, or any other university, they stopped offering extensions to people, even if they suffered large delays because of COVID. So that's something one needs to keep in mind, that don't have any hopes that you will get an extension and so on, because it's very unlikely. They are very strict about that. And if you don't get extension, there is one thing, of course, you can always apply for unemployment benefits. So that again has to do with the Dutch government and not really TU Delft. So Dutch government is like a welfare state. So they take care of people who don't have jobs. So the way it works is, for every year of tax you've paid, you get 1 month of unemployment benefit, which roughly comes to around 70 to 75% of your last month's salary that you got. In case of a PhD, like I mentioned, you have worked for 4 years, and during those 4 years, when you get your salary, you pay tax. So if you work for 4 years, you can get 4 months of unemployment benefit. So that should be sufficient to get you going for the next couple of months after your contract ends. But after that, hopefully you will be at a stage where you're almost done with everything, and maybe you just have a little bit of writing done, or maybe you're even done with your writing and you submitted your thesis and you're just waiting for your defense to happen. And in that situation, mostly people already start looking for jobs or a postdoc, depending upon which side you want to go. And people start working. More often than not, a PhD student actually is already working, and they take a day or two off and come and defend their work, because no one's going to be waiting till their defense to start applying for work. And also, companies are quite understanding of that. They don't expect you to have your PhD in hand when you're applying for jobs. They actually are more than fine with you having done the 4 years of your PhD and you're like at the finishing stages, and then they are happy to provide you with a job offer based on your research experience during those 4 years. And there are even some companies which are quite understanding that, okay, you're still doing your PhD, then they offer like sort of a part-time job. You can work 4 out of 5 days, or even 3 out of 5 days, and the other 2 days you can work on your PhD, So that's also a possibility. So
I think in Netherlands, there is, in Europe, I feel there is that, let's say, flexibility in terms of the work hours to allow this as a setup. So definitely.
Yeah. Actually, with this, I am actually very curious. This is like the last question I want to come down to, and this is what we ask all our guests, So if suppose you could travel back in time, for you, that time is not that much.
Far away.
Yeah,
8
for
months.
you, it's like a few years ago.
Yeah.
So I want to know one tip from you, that if suppose, what would be that one thing you would do differently if you could go back in time? So, Fathaah.
Yeah. For me, I feel, again, choosing a PhD, or in general choosing the next step, I feel I had a lot of pressure in my mind. I feel what I could have done differently is not think about the time pressure, not really. I mean, retrospectively, I can say that right now with ease, but not thinking about that financial and time pressure, and actually applying for a Zukyar visa, because that allows you to like work part-time. I feel if I had done that, the 1 month of after graduating in September, the amount of stress I felt, that would have really reduced, and I would have actually, like, financially I would have been just earning enough money to survive, and then that would have given me some time to take this decision a bit more
Rationally.
not about that, it's a bit more like happily and a bit more patiently, like considering everything, looking at the good sides and the bad sides. So I feel like just taking a step back and looking at it in a more broader sense of how it will impact.
What
I think
about
that
you,
is
Arvind?
something.
Oh, wow, that's a loaded question. Let me see.
It could be just one tip, like one thing you would do differently.
All right, I guess to keep it in the context of doing a PhD and not just about life in general, I think what I could have done differently is write more. And by that, I mean both academic writing and also just journaling. Because, more often than not, we always say that time flies. Oh God, like, has it been that long already? What was I doing? And so on. And that's never been more true than in case of a PhD, because now when I look back at it, it's been like 4 years, and while yes, I know what I did, but I am sometimes like it can get a bit hazy about the specifics. What exactly was I doing in my third year? What was I doing 2 years down the line? So on one hand, yes, you should also be doing academic writing, because you shouldn't keep all your writing, like your thesis and stuff, to your final years, because then it can get quite daunting, and also it can kind of get a bit unclear what exactly you were doing a year down, like earlier. I mean, sometimes I find it difficult to remember what I was doing last month, So academic writing aside, I'm also specifically referring to journaling. Just writing down what you did during the day. It can be something very extensive about all the major details that you did in a day, or if you're lazy, or if you're just starting out, just write down the important highlights of your day, just maybe 2 or 3 major events every day, so that when you look back at it, you have a sense of time, you have a sense of what you have been doing, what you have done, where you're going with it. It can also be good for introspection. It can be a good metric as to see whether you're progressing, whether you're doing something, with your life, or or things are proceeding the way they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
I think that's something I would like to have right now in my hand, like a journal of the past 4 years of my life. So yeah, that's something I would have done differently.
Nice, nice. So with this, we come to the end of the 5th episode of Life After Delft, which is powered by FooDo. So do check them out in the links and the descriptions below. And until that time, we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye. Doi doi.
Bye.